Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining me at the Action Sci-Fi Fantasy Creators Lounge. I am your host, Barry Gaines of Gaines Entertainment, and the writer and director and editor of the hit series A World of Worlds, where you can see on Amazon, Google Play, Binge Horror, and SoFi TV. And today I have my star, the king of my series, my man, Robert Rios. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yo, thank you, man. Thank you for being here with me, man. I appreciate that.
Here, look, I am no hero king.
My woman born! Let's see if anything's changed in the last 2,000 years.
What we must do now is bring back balance to our mother. And I promise you, Tenant, we will win this.
Hey, listen, we've been doing our thing for a couple years now on this series and came a long way. Did a lot of things with hardly anything. And, we're doing it. We're moving along, we're moving forward. And, a lot of times people have seen you as well in other, projects, and they don't really get to know who you are, you know what I mean? And I want this to kind of expose, hey, who's Robert Rios? So I think it'd be a good time. I think people are really interested in knowing who you are since they've seen you in other projects. So, but first thing is like, where did you start? Like, how does it all start for you?
Started at an early age for me. I've been blessed with having just an early exposure to the industry through my father, who's a professional boxing trainer, still is currently. In the 90s, was an Olympic boxing trainer. Had a couple guys in the top 10 champions and such. And with that, we got on television shows like SportsCenter, HBO, Showtime and such. And he always brought me along on those trips. And from there, I guess subconsciously, this is something that I've always wanted to be a part of. And as I grew older, I just kind of fell into it and naturally just found my way.
Nice, man. I mean, what was like your first gig?
My first gig, my first gig was a student film for some kind of like comedy horror zombie thing.
Were you the zombie or the?
Yeah, I was a zombie. Yeah, because I was really following the footsteps of my man Johnny Depp early, and I still love him to death.
Hell yeah.
And the opportunity to transform for my first film was a dream come true. As challenging as that experience was, that's the way I'm going to put it. And I also found a way to get my wife involved. She does makeup and prosthetics and such. So it was a win-win. The results of the project wasn't as,
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
but,
And then let people know his wife is also going to do makeup for us for season 2 in The World of Worlds. So it's like, you guys will see her eventually as well. So they're like a team, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? But, when you first started, like, what were the challenges just kind of getting into it? Like, when your first gig is like, okay, this is it. But what was what you felt your challenge was to even kind of do that?
I think my biggest obstacle was accepting how often failure was going to be a part of the process. And just accepting that because, human nature, we kind of we're pretty efficient with, getting down on when things don't go our way. And in this industry, there is a lot of that. And as the faster you can accept failure, the better the process is going to be for you creatively, mentally, spiritually, and because it can easily interfere with your work. So as soon as you kind of accept that as being part of the process, it's only going to aid you through it all.
Right. How did you learn that? Did your father tell you that, or you just kind of learned the hard way?
I learned the hard way. It actually, I'm passionately curious, so it led me to other ventures as far as like what's happening in my mind, how much can I sustain, what's my threshold. I started asking myself a lot of these questions just naturally. I guess who I am, just curious about how all these things work. So it led me into different, personal hobbies as far as like the psychology, physiology, anatomy. and such like that. And I just kind of incorporated that into who I am today, just personally and as a creator.
So I guess with that, of course, how would you prep? I guess that kind of goes, that kind of marries into how you prep, I assume.
Absolutely. I recommend getting it in some kind of institution for the dramatic arts. I think I highly recommend it, being in a creative space with other creators, things that you can pick up from them, learn about yourself, and just the environment it's a non-judgmental environment in a place where, again, it'll allow you to create more efficiently, and it'll allow you to be proactive in your process that is always evolving with time and projects and experiences that you go through. So did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, in a way. Now tell me this. Now we're gonna get into now we're in the weeds. Now, how do you prep? Now, do you have a thing that runs across all of type of productions that you're in? That how do you personally prep for a role?
What I do is I observe. I think being the Sherlock Holmes of your own process is the best advice I can give you. It's the small details. It's really not the grand, thing that everyone thinks it is. It's not about the high emotion or the high stakes or being frightened or being overly dramatic in sorrow or despair. It's those subtle nuances in experience and facial expressions and body language. It's those little things that create those huge inspiring moments. We get caught up in all that through the mainstream, Hollywood films and such like that, but it's a buildup and we don't know it, but subconsciously we're aware of what's happening and we're picking it up. So when those big moments do occur, they move us so much more because of that. So to answer that question is, again, the subtle nuances in my preparation is something that I take very seriously and I work on. And that's through the authenticity of the experience of my emotion or what's happening around me. So just like in life, your environment's going to affect you and your relationships are going to affect you. So I always start with what's my environment and what's my relationship, and I allow that to kind of dictate what direction I go in the scene. And that varies moment to moment, just like in life. I accept everything.
No, it's funny you say that because while you were going through that and prepping and, just going through that experience, that has to also help you or assist you in picking the right role. Like when you see something of interest, what do you look for before you decide a role? What qualities, what characteristics tells you this will work for me as opposed to just a storyline?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking me that. I've never been asked that. For me, I personally, and these don't present themselves often, but I personally look for projects that are going to inspire, lead, change, invoke thought, deep feeling, change perspective. Those are the things that I personally look for. And as far as character development, when I read the details of the description of it, that's something that I'm able to kind of know right away what kind of role I'm getting into and the kind of role that I'm attracted to. And again, that doesn't come by very often, but those are the kind of roles that I look for personally.
Do you like to, when you speak with the director, do you like to speak to the director much more? Like, maybe, do you like to sit down and really kind of get into the weeds with the director, or you pretty much are an actor where you say, you know what, just tell me like just the gist of it and I'll work it out from there?
It varies. It varies with the directors that you work with. Some directors want to be communicated with often, and they value that relationship with the director-actor relationship. Some directors are just like, do your job, show up, and we'll make it work. So I kind of allow that to be as it is and try not to force anything. I prefer to have that conversation with the directors as often as I can, just to see how far we can go what direction we're taking in every moment and how the flow of things are going, just to keep them up to date with where I am in character at that time and how everything's going. That's what I prefer personally.
And even when you come on the set, like, even getting these roles, you have these things called auditions. Auditions can be a monster for a lot of people. I mean, people take auditions different ways. They prep for different ways. What's your way of prepping for any audition when you're ready to go? What would you tell someone to say, hey, listen, this is what you should do for like an audition. This is what,
I highly recommend, and I've only picked this up with time, is find a form of meditation, practice mindfulness. That just brings you balance in your breath and in your mind. Speaking on a scientific note, the way our brain waves operate, when we're more in an erratic state or in a panic, our brain waves are going a little bit crazier than they should. And our different parts of our mind are working, and it causes stress and anxiety and tightness. Mm-hmm. And meditation actually balances out those brain waves to get you in a resting state. And it allows the parts of your mind that are creative to be fully active and not interfered or blocked. And that's what I personally recommend for auditions. So.
Wow. No, it's interesting. I mean, you think of it that way, because all auditions are different, all roles are different. I mean, when you think about all the auditions and all the roles you had, how many roles do you think you've had that were just totally different? What do you think? Like, man, how many have you had?
I think, in the beginning, you get what's called typecast, and, you get a lot of the same stuff, and it gets a little bit repetitive, and you get a little bit tired. But with time, as you're able to, what I recommend is, though those roles seem the same, don't approach them with that like mind. Always try to bring some new flavor to it and allow them to see you for who you are creatively in those moments. And from there, more roles open up as you show a different skill sets in different moments and different times. And these crews know other crews, these directors know other directors. And it's usually from there in that network where you're able to kind of branch off and do different roles. And some people are just blessed to have a lot more variety and opportunities early on. Personally, I haven't had those. I just had to create those on my own.
No, I hear you. I mean, you went out and just kind of, went for it. And that's what you have to do, is just go for it no matter what. I think a lot of times people forget there's going to be a lot of no's in this industry, more no's and yeses. And when you get those yeses, man, you hang on to those and you build as much as you can, strengthen them. Think about it. Every yes is going to be a muscle. So, well, actually, the no, just to say, is a muscle to create. So you get ready for the yeses. And I think that's something that, people need to say more and hear people say it more. Because they always talk about the glitz and the glamour, but you have to get ready for those no's. It really appreciates the good and the yeses when they come along, and it was interesting too. I mean, everything you've been doing, like all the years you've been doing this, and all the productions you've gone through so far. How do you juggle this with just home life and then going for auditions and then going for your a production? And I mean, because right now we're indie filmmakers, and of course we have that job that pays our bills. And so how do you even juggle with the family and everything else?
It's the best thing I can compare it to is marriage. It's just, when you love someone or something so much, you're going to deal with everything. And whatever that day looks like, every day I wake up next to my wife, I don't paint her the same. She's not the same person, and I don't allow that to disrupt my thoughts or feeling towards her. I just accept her as the next day comes, as the next moment comes. And that's how you keep the love strong. Now, when it comes to the craft itself, every day is different. Some days she's going to be beautiful. Some days she's going to be a hot mess. But when you love her, she's going to drive you crazy, and you're going to accept it. And she's going to be she's going to give you the most euphoric feelings. And it's all a part of the process. It's a marriage, and it's something when you're in love, you find a way. You do find a way, and that's how you know. That's how you know it's real.
No, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, you got to find the love. I mean, that does help, and the support factor is really helpful. Not everyone has it. Not everyone is blessed as we are to have the support. And I think that when you, the support itself will be the craft, and that craft is always going to get you where you need to go to. You know what I mean?
Huge.
And think about it. Everything you've been doing too. Like, who would you want to work with? Like, if you've had a chance, man, it's kind of like, man, I like to work with this person as an actor. Like, what actor would you want to work with first?
Actor, there's two. There's one more mainstream, I would say, is, like I said, Johnny Depp early in the beginning, just because of his, transformative roles and what, wanting to pick his brain on the process and transformation and just to see where he is in that space. And then another guy, Travis Fimmel, he's famous, or more notably known for being Ragnar Lothbrok in the series Vikings on the History Channel.
Yeah.
And he played on Warcraft, also the movie as well as the lead role. And he's an Australian actor, very strong performer, emotionally, physically, and just personally. Followed him for a while. Seems like, a nice guy to have a couple drinks with too. So.
All right. Hell yeah. Now, it's funny you say that because, those actors have been in all types of movies. And when it comes down to an action sci-fi fantasy film, what do you find interesting about the field? Just being active within that field. What do you find, I guess, a difference between others?
In sci-fi, I think physically you have to prepare yourself, and mentally, and I'll break those two down. Physically, for me personally, I try to train myself like an athlete, and that's, dieting, changing my metabolic state to be more prepared for what I'm physically going to endure in this imaginary world, which segues nicely now into the mental preparation. For the mental preparation, you're literally having to create simultaneously with everyone else, and for everyone to see the same world, you have to be fully taken by this imaginary world that you just created in your own mind. You have to allow yourself just to be, engulfed by the whole experience and the magic of it all. And that takes a very special place and preparation that I can't emphasize enough, how important that is to really, again, fully prepare. And once you get in and get lost in that space, it's so much fun. It's so much fun because, again, it's only a place that you reach in a dream state, in your dreams. Like, you see things flying and floating, the fundamental forces of nature are non-existent, gravity, electromagnetism,
Right.
It's irrelevant at that time, now it's your world and how you choose to live in it. And that's freedom. That's a freedom we don't get to experience in the physical world that we live in. So.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, with this world, we have to make our own. Like, we make the laws. I mean, that's what it is. And then you got to have, even though you make the laws, now you have to kind of think about how that law makes sense.
Right.
It starts to get really, really kind of intricate at times, just getting that through. But, from what you've done, especially with me and my series, you've done a great job and an incredible job to the point where we're still building it. And I think it's something that really says a lot as you as an actor. And I just want to say, as a director and a writer, and having you on board and having you just kind of build and create a character from paper, to flesh is, it's an incredible ride as a director to see that come about, and to have an actor such as yourself to kind of bring it to another levels that I didn't even think about. And I think that as an actor, as yourself, you bring that a lot to a lot of your characters. you know what I mean, all the characters. You always see something a little different, even if it's a dramatic character. So I think that's something that, like you say, actors always should aspire to, you know, even if you're saying you get kind of like the same role, always bring it up a notch, do a little different, you know? So I know, I think that's the way it should be. And when you do this, what do you find being in this kind of sci-fi world and fantasy? Do you see a difference in productions? Like when you go to a different production as opposed to like a sci-fi production, is your prep a little different? Does it change? Because I know you were saying this is the way I get prepared, and it kind of, you know, marries through others. But do you see do you prep differently for different movies that way? You know?
Yes, and in that place, again, for sci-fis is definitely a lot of, you know, physical and mental. Not to say there's none for like the drama,
Right.
realism, such like that. But for what I'm usually casting is drama. So for that, it requires, I have to emphasize more on the mental part of it. I don't have the freedom to express physically a lot of the times. Again, it's the subtle nuances in what I'm feeling and in my emotions and such like that. Sci-fi gives me the freedom to express emotionally and physically. And so it's different in preparation as far as where I go, you know, in that space. So again, sci-fi for me is more free to express because I have everything at my disposal to express. Drama is more, I have to internalize a lot more. And in my small window and framing, I have to make it feel like I am running and expressing myself physically and such. So,
No, I hear that. I hear that. But you know, with all this, what have you learned as an actor? What would you say you learned that's really vital for you?
The more I experience personally, and the more curious I am about the world and myself, it aids me in my craft. It's allowed me to be a better actor, a better performer. Staying curious, again, it keeps you in a constant cycle of wisdom, and seeking wisdom every day is something I emphasize, even with my own kids and my wife, who, you know, started to hear that by now, I'm sure. But staying curious and seeking wisdom are two things that I highly recommend, personally and in performance as well.
Now, for other actors, you know, that want to kind of, you know, get into the game just generally, but in particular, when it comes down to like an action sci-fi film, and they say, you know what, I really want to kind of get into that world. I want to try that genre. You know what I mean? What kind of advice would you give them as opposed to going to other genres? Although don't get me wrong, other genres do require you for massive preps as well.
Yeah.
But in the sci-fi action fantasy world, and you start getting into that whole thing, what would you say do? Like, make sure you do this if you're going to get into that whole genre.
I try to, again, me personally, I try to stay consistent with my preparation. I know there is differences in genres, but again, I try to approach everything in my preparation as life or death. And I have to go to that extreme so then I can perform at that extreme. But I always recommend that in your preparation, when you read a script or character, you put them in life or death situations so it can heighten the stakes for you. I'm being very general because there's a lot into the process and such, and even for sci-fi. But accepting everything, which means you're going to see some weird shit around you. Forgive my language. As far as your co-stars and such like that, and accept it all, again, because they're in their world, and the more synchronized you can be with your counterparts, and the more comfortable you are with going to those extremes in your own preparation, the more fulfilling and gratifying it will be for you in the sci-fi genre.
And what is I know I can hear that. What about the don'ts? Like what don't do Just as an actor in general, like, man, don't do that.
Don't judge yourself. When you get into sci-fi and things that have not been created yet, you have to enter in places that, at times the world would judge, or you judge yourself, like I really shouldn't be thinking that, or that's stupid, or And I said weird earlier, but weird is good to me. I like weird. Weird is something sometimes I don't understand, but I accept. But you may judge yourself and think weird as a bad thing, and don't judge yourself in anything, in your thoughts and in your process. Just do your best to understand it and accept it. And if you can use it, use it. If you don't need it, let it go. Let it go. So don't judge yourself in the creative process. That's your own specifically.
No, that's good. Yeah, the confidence level.
Sure.
I mean, there's nothing bad. You just try it out. You just don't know. Exactly. Try it out, because you don't know that very thing that makes you nervous, that makes you scared, can be the one thing that can just save a movie or save your character. You just can't see it.
There is a lot of, like I stated earlier, a lot of creative collaboration. You're not one in this. You're not the only person, creating this world. So this creative collaboration, accept that and allow it to assist you in your process. Because through that, even speaking with co-stars, I learned a lot about my character and how they feel towards my character, and how they feel towards me influenced things as well. Little things in my process that I can implement or go harder on or emphasize more in relationships. So accept everything and creative collaboration. Don't judge yourself.
No, man, that's some great advice. It really is. And those that want to be in the game, yeah, man, just do it. Just go for it. You know what I mean? But, all in all, man, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I think this is really enlightening for other actors and also for just you, man. Now we just know a little more about you. So I guess now when people see you in other movies, they can connect a little more. They say, yeah, I know what he's doing. I got a good idea where he's going with this and why he's actually even doing this. I think that's great. I think we all can relate to that. So again, hey, thanks, Rob Rios, my man, the actor, the legend. Thanks again, man, for being on my show. And trust me, everybody be seeing you soon. And everyone out there, thank you for looking at this program with Robert Rios. And we'll be coming back again with some more interviews here in the Action Sci-Fi Fantasy Creators Lounge. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys again soon.